Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Quigley on Divorce, a behind-the-scenes look. I'm your host, James Quigley, and thank you, first of all, for tuning in and listening. Today is kind of an interesting topic, kind of a one-off issue we deal with, but it's appropriate this time of year. As you can see, I'm adorned with my fall colors, and with the fall comes the holidays. And in the world of divorce, holidays, for whatever reason, they present the same issues over and over and over again, even though the holidays, most of them fall at the same time every year. We know they're coming. But for whatever reason, sometimes they get lost in the shuffle. Maybe the agreements that are drafted don't work out quite right, or they're not detailed enough, but there's always some kind of problem that leads to litigation. So depending on when you're listening and hearing this, we've got Halloween, we've got Thanksgiving, we've got Christmas, we've got Hanukkah, we've got New Year's Eve. We've got a variety of, we've got Kwanzaa, we've got all kinds of holidays that are going to be coming up in the next several months. And when you're in divorce, that may seem like a secondary matter, but when the holidays get here and you want to have your children with you, or you want to celebrate certain traditions that you may have celebrated while the two of you in a marriage were together, there might be changes. So let me anecdotally kind of, aside from the fact that it's this time of year that we're dealing with holidays, we just had an issue that came up recently, and it was fairly indicative of some of the problems we run into. So in this particular instance, we had a husband and wife. One was Jewish, one was Christian. So one might naturally assume that in a divorce, the Jewish parent would have the Jewish holidays, the Christian parent might have the Christian holidays. But in this particular instance, the Jewish parent wanted to divide up Christmas Eve and Christmas. And that issue was opposed by the Christian parent. And so the issue ended up being litigated before a judge. Now, I'll tell you this. I've been doing this 28 years. Christmas comes around every year on December 25th. But notwithstanding that, for years, I found myself in court December 18th, December 25th, or 21st, December 19th, whatever the date is, days before Christmas, on emergencies, where people have filed an emergency motion demanding that the court order them to have a certain time. Maybe it's in a case where Christmas hasn't yet been determined. And so invariably what happens, in my experience, when those issues are brought to the court, number one, the court says, this is not an emergency. Get out of here. I'm not going to allow you to bring a matter to court as an emergency, which basically means it's not on the call, it's not pre-scheduled, it's not something the judge had planned on that particular day. And they're very limited in certain circumstances where courts will deal with emergencies. So many judges will look and say, this is not an emergency. You knew Christmas was coming years ago, or months ago, weeks ago. You could have addressed this. You chose not to. So figure it out. So that's number one, be careful. If you think you're going to address a holiday issue on an emergent basis, you might find yourself being thrown out of court by the judge and saying, we'll deal with this for next year. The other piece to that is, my experience has told me that the judges don't have the time in their schedule, in their calendars, to understand every family's unique traditions, the issues between religious differences and the holidays that, go along with people's different religions. And so oftentimes it's been my experience that judges will take a very straightforward, simple approach and say, fine, we'll split the holidays. And in the majority of allocation judgments, which are the agreements that lay out all the parenting time, the schedules, the rules around divorcing parents, in those allocation judgments, there's typically a holiday schedule. And the holiday schedule is usually set up that you take all the major holidays, you might split them in half and say the one spouse gets this half in odd numbered years, and that spouse gets those in even numbered years, and then you flip-flop the next year. So in the case that we had, where we had a Jewish parent and a Christian parent, where the Jewish parent was seeking to have the Christian holiday of Christmas Eve and Christmas divided, like one would normally have in any other agreement. And that was opposed by the Christian parent. What ultimately ended up happening by the judge is the judge said, no, I'm going to split it. Very simple, straightforward approach. We've seen it many times before. However, what the Jewish parent didn't contemplate in that scenario is then the judge said, okay, when it comes to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we're going to split those as well. And so it was one of those situations of be careful what you wish for. And understanding that a court isn't typically going to favor one parent over the other if there's disputes over holidays. So what's the lesson in this? A couple of things. Number one is, again, understanding that the holidays are always either on the same weekend of the month or the same date of the month, year after year after year, and we need to plan in advance for those things. From a litigation standpoint, be proactive. Don't wait till the week of a holiday and try to resolve a dispute. Try to get into mediation if you can. That would, to me, these are the kind of things where, to the second point of this, if there are religious differences, for example, in a household where parents of different faiths celebrate different holidays, and maybe through the years, in a combined religious household where you have some differences, maybe they celebrate the Jewish holidays and they celebrate the Christian holidays as a family. But maybe it's more important for one to celebrate, certain holidays after divorce versus the other one celebrating their holidays from their traditions after divorce. Getting into mediation is a great way of having those parents discuss those issues and try to negotiate a resolution. Because maybe it makes sense to, for example, in a winter break, when the kids are in school, they get 2 weeks off around the Christmas holidays. Well, if you're going to divide that so each parent gets a week, maybe it makes sense for the Christian parent, for example, to have the week where Christmas Eve and Christmas Day fall within that week so they can have an uninterrupted vacation. And the other parent then naturally would end up with the New Year's Eve portion of the second half of the Christmas break or the winter break. So that's just sort of a pragmatic way of looking at it. But understanding too, sometimes there are families, for example, where if you have two litigants that are both Christian, one family of the litigants might have a very, very strong Christmas Eve tradition that, say, the husband, for example, the husband's family, year after year after year after year, celebrates Christmas Eve with the family. That's their main gathering day as opposed to Christmas Day. Well, from the kids' standpoint, while they were married, every year the kids went with mom and dad to dad's family for Christmas Eve, and maybe they did something with mom's family on Christmas Day. That might be something you'd want to get in front of a judge if you couldn't reach an agreement where mom says, fine, you have Christmas Eve every year and I'll have Christmas Day every year. Getting that issue, if not agreed, before a judge early enough so that the judge understands there has been a pattern of doing this for year after year after year. And maybe the argument is less about me and saying, as the dad whose family celebrates Christmas Eve, I want to have that for me, but rather you're saying it's for the children. The children have enjoyed this tradition year after year after year. They have 17 cousins and aunts and uncles and grandma and grandpa, and so we want them to be able to continue on. That's something that a court, if given enough time in advance, is likely to pay some deference to if presented the right way. So think about those traditions, try to resolve them as best you can. We work with some really talented mediators, and at the end of the day, the focus ought to always be what's really best for the kids, what's going to be easiest for the kids. Sometimes flip-flopping back and forth isn't great for them, and so you want to keep that in mind. This time of year, we run into disputes over trick-or-treating. And some people, again, it's really a fun holiday for some people, and they really get into it. And so if there's some horse trading that can take place because your spouse loves the pageantry of Halloween, getting out and getting the kids dressed up and walking around in frigid, rainy, weather every Halloween. And I can say that because my birthday's right around Halloween. So it's always miserable that time of year. But some people really love it. And so maybe that's something in a negotiation you can extend the olive branch and you start a discussion around that where you concede something that the kids love. They love doing it with dad. They love doing it with mom, whatever. Consider that kind of a thing, because the other thing we've run into from time to time just with Halloween is it's a limited window. What is it? Maybe start at 4 o'clock and ends at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, something like that. So we've had cases where we've actually had parents insist upon going together. So imagine how fun that is for little Johnny when you've got mom and dad that are killing each other in court, and now we're going to walk around and trick or treat together. So again, always thinking about the kids, thinking about, can we have a Halloween party at, if Halloween falls on a Thursday and it's not my weekend, okay, maybe the other parent, I'm going to let them have Halloween. I don't get to do trick or treating, but then that weekend I'm going to have a Halloween party at my house where we're going to have little Johnny invite some friends over. We're going to carve pumpkins and we're going to have candy, and we're going to do, by the way, it's a great way maybe to get rid of all of the candy that's left over from, that you bought at Costco or Sam's Club. Either way, try to always think about how can we make this fun for the kids, not stressful. And at the end of the day too, also recognize that as parents, your window of opportunity to really enjoy walking around and trick-or-treating with kids, there's a limited window of time that you have to enjoy children. And so maybe alternating years, maybe trying to break up where if we're trick-or-treating, we have a window of 4 to 8, maybe one, trick-or-treats from 4 to 6, and then the other picks up from 6 to 8. Again, it requires logistics, it requires compromise. But at the end of the day, from a parent's perspective, to be able to enjoy those precious moments, being with your kids, seeing the smile on their face, and they come back with bags of Snickers and Reese's peanut butter cups and all that great stuff, you want to have that and be sensitive to both parents enjoying those moments. So that's, we see some of those things, Halloween, Christmas, Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is another complication, right? Because we have Thanksgiving and typically children have off Thursday and Friday from school. When you talk about Thanksgiving in allocation judgment, when that's entered, do we count Thanksgiving as the day only? Is it, hey, it's Thanksgiving in my year, so I get to pick up Wednesday night and have them all the way through Sunday? Do I get to capture the other parent's weekend? These are things you want to think about. Some schools actually have, particularly as your kids get older, some schools have the entire week off. And what would be better than to have the entire week so that if I wanted to take a November vacation, go see family out of state, go someplace warm, that's an opportunity where, again, if you get to do it this year, then I get to do it next year. And those are the kind of things that you want to talk about. But that's when you sit down, hopefully in mediation, and you're trying to anticipate these future holidays as a divorced family. It's complicated because you do have those traditions. Thanksgiving is a very classic example of that. Some people very much do a early afternoon. We got the football games on and we're enjoying that being around. Sometimes people prefer more of a dinner. So can you accommodate both traditions? Can you break up a day where someone has Wednesday until 2 p.m. on Thanksgiving Day and then go 2 p.m. until the next day on Friday? These are things that you have to put some brain power into. Try to think of things in advance when you're sitting down trying to negotiate that final allocation judgment. Because you're trying to avoid litigation. You're trying to avoid any stress for the children. I mean, these are family times. And as much as a divorce is a dissolution of a marriage, it doesn't have to be a breakdown of family. It doesn't have to be a breakdown of family traditions. And in fact, I would suggest to you, those of you listening and watching at home, that really what you want to consider is, notwithstanding the dissolution of the marriage, how can we preserve for our children those traditions, those special moments, those opportunities within their parents' divorce to have a sense of stability, normalcy, something that kind of reconnects them to happier times. So holidays are amazing. They're time for celebration. They're time for family. They're a time for sometimes religious reflection. And so, as difficult as it may be in a divorce to sometimes give the other spouse even an inch, and sometimes you see the exact opposite. If I know something my spouse really wants, I'm going to take that thing away to punish that spouse or to make it difficult. That's not putting your children first. So I very much encourage you to set those differences aside. I know it's easier said than done. But in the long run, when your children are grown, when the children are off to college, out of college, remarried, have their own children, your grandchildren, whether or not you're participating in those celebrations with them as adults is going to be in large part, I think, dependent upon how you manage those situations for them as children. So think about the long-term consequences, but also, think about the economic impact that this has, the money people waste fighting over, do I get half this holiday and half that holiday? It's not worth it. Make some compromises, be fair, be respectful, and at all times keep the kids in focus. And you know what then? Once you have it down, you can plan your celebrations. You'll know what holidays the kids are going to be with you, and you make the most of it, and that's going to be great for the kids, and it's going to be great for you. So as we approach this holiday season, I really wish everyone the best. I really hope that in the time of stress, if you are in the middle of a divorce, if you are contemplating a divorce, that at least maybe you can step back for the moment and say, let's allow the kids this moment. Let's allow them this opportunity just to have some joy in their life. There's enough stress on kids these days. You hear about suicide rates for teens and youth this day. It's staggering. It is unacceptable. And so if there's anything we can do in trying to remove some of that stress for kids, for them to just have some sense of joy, togetherness, family, the support of togetherness, let's all strive to do that. So for all of you out there, I wish you happy Hanukkah, happy Halloween, happy Kwanzaa, Merry Christmas, happy Thanksgiving, all of the wonderful holidays. I hope that you have an opportunity to enjoy those with your family. And if this might be one of those holidays where you're not going to exactly be able to be with your children, then find an alternative. A couple days later, find a way to create new traditions, new celebrations, something, hey, maybe the kids are going to get 2 Christmases this year, or they're going to get 2 Thanksgivings this year. Be creative and think about the kids. So I hope this is helpful. I hope you can avoid litigation over these issues. Again, if you have questions of me where you say, how can I get with a mediator that could help me and my spouse try to navigate the upcoming holidays in a way that's respectful of each other's traditions, respectful of the wishes of the children, and so on and so forth, happy to make some referrals. If there is a situation that needs to be litigated, you can always reach me at 312-621-1225. That's my direct extension. You can always check me out on Facebook, Twitter, other social media pages. Our website is www.beermannlaw.com. That's BEERMANNLAW.com. And you can view my profile and see the experience I've had working with folks just like you. And happy to give whatever advice I can. And again, enjoy the holidays. Take care.